It's The Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Tia Graham. Detroit's fine arts community is growing and producing more internationally known creatives. And with so much talent, artists and organizers continue to find creative ways to raise their visibility. Detroit Salon is a new initiative produced by women-led organization Salonnière that puts Detroit artists in front of global audiences, curators, and museums by touring exhibitions that carry their pieces. The collective's first show was in Paris at Art Basel, where they installed 3 different exhibitions. Each one highlighted different areas of Detroit life. Juana Williams and Kesswa join me now in studio to discuss Detroit Salon's efforts. Juana is an artistic creative director and chief curator for Detroit Salon, and Kesswa is a vocalist, producer, filmmaker who musically curated the exhibitions in Paris. Juana, Kesswa, welcome to the Metro.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So jumping in, Juana, Detroit Salon debuted this year at Art Basel in Paris. You were chief curator, of course. What is it like just kicking off internationally, and what is your vision for this project?
I think it was an exciting experience. We've been working on this for a number of years, sort of behind the scenes, and so it was exciting to be able to bring it to the public. It's always fascinating to me to recognize more and more artists in Detroit. I've been doing this for a while, but through this process, I got to know more artists, and of course, it was very exciting to be able to exhibit their work in Paris.
Which is amazing to just think about. And for those who, of course, aren't really sure what Detroit Salon is, it's a women-led organization. It's a women-led initiative. Can you talk about just putting that together, that behind the scenes, all the years that led up to where we are today?
Of course. So ultimately, we're trying to sort of create Detroit as a global arts hub. We really want to expand the conversation around the arts and culture scene that's happening here. And that's kind of our foundation for everything that we're doing. So for the last 3 to 4 years, we've been doing a lot of research in terms of what's happening here now and historically, and then creating partnerships so that we can make this happen.
Wow. And Kesswa, bringing you into the conversation, you are an interdisciplinary artist based right here in the city. You're one of the musical curators for the exhibition in Paris. First and foremost, what is music curation, or how would you describe what you do, especially when we talk about just DJing, but it's not just DJing, it's a little bit more. So just talk about working within the museum space or the art space, curating the music.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that, like you said, there's an element of it where it's just traditional DJing, playing music to kind of bring people together and make sure they have a good time. But my intention with the curation was to expose people or introduce people to the music of Detroit and just the variety of music that we listen to here in the Midwest. So, listening to a lot of electronic music like Underground Resistance and Shigeto and all of my friends and, people I'm in community with here, but then also the music that inspired me and informed me growing up on the radio.
When we think about the music that inspired you on the radio, for me, I was thinking about like just the mixes, the club mixes at night. They used to come on like WJLB and things like that. So what inspired you listening to the radio back then, and how did you bring that to a Paris audience?
Yeah, well, I can give you an example. The night of the first event, which we held at the Palais de Tokyo, was the introduction to the exhibition and the programming. There was a panel and discussion, and then like a corresponding party or event and performance with Battle Elf. And I closed my set with Underground Resistance's Timeline. And I would say that song was the soundtrack to my first musical awakening as a child. I remember just being in my bedroom, maybe like about 5 or 6 years old, and hearing this music and having never heard anything like it before. And so that's kind of the energy that I wanted to bring into the space. And I would say that people felt really, really excited and interested in that.
I love that they felt Detroit when they listened to the music. They felt what Detroit feels when we listen to the music, and especially when we listen to your music, Kesswa. But thinking about your global travels, because you've been traveling a lot, we've been following up. I mean, you were in India, you've been like all over the place this year. Talk about performing globally and traveling globally and what it's done for you.
It really, and I've had this kind of conversation with a lot of my friends who are artists and who want to travel internationally, who are just curious about my experiences. On one side, being an artist who works in music within this context of fine art and institutions, but then another being like embedded in Detroit's musical community and, you know, performing with the Shigeto Live Ensemble. It always provides me an opportunity to share the world that I live in Detroit. And I feel like Detroit is such an insulated kind of enclosed space. Like, you can come to Detroit and you can have a good time. You can do the things that, like, you know, you can go to a sports event, you can go downtown, but there's something about the heart of the city that is just still so underground. And I think that traveling internationally and being able to perform with people who are like world-class artists and musicians and share that artistry, which is so unique and specific to the language that we speak here and to just kind of the culture that we create here, to people who might also have an insulated experience, like people who are living in India and people who are living in Paris or Germany or wherever, just provides an opportunity for true cultural exchange. And also, like, I get to share the material for the musical awakenings that I've had with people.
Yeah, and Kesswa, sticking with you for a moment, you know, hearing you talk about just connecting more with people across different, you know, boundaries or lanes or whatever it may be. And number one thing that I often hear from artists in the city is we are so underground in Detroit. It is so hard to break out of this idea that, you know, we're just this gritty group of individuals who are making it right here in the city and we don't need help from anyone else. We can do this. And it's interesting to hear you say that. But I'm curious to know, like, in a world of social media, in the world of this is hyper connected, we're always connected to the news and everything that's happening. How is it that so many artists aren't connected?
Could you elaborate? Connected in what way?
Connected in terms of understanding what each other's doing, what's going on within each other's realm and spaces. Like, you know, we live in these isolated little zones in the arts community, especially here in the city. So what is one of the things that's limiting us from getting out of those barriers and connecting, especially when we have social media in so many ways that we can connect?
You know, I think that one of the reasons why it can be challenging to connect is because even though technology, you know, we have this perspective on technology being the great connector. We have access to all of this information, more information than we have ever historically had access to at our fingertips. It also can, in a way, make it difficult to have intimate and like real deep connections with people. Sometimes even the connections can be parasocial because you can see so much about what someone that you might not have ever met is doing or what their values and beliefs are without ever having had a conversation with them in real life. And so I think the same goes for music and art. You can see a person's exhibition from your bedroom. You can see, you know, you can listen to a whole album without having ever gone to a show. And those are just completely different experiences.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And, you know, how does Detroit's creative community differ from major cities in the art world like Paris and New York, especially from your perspective, Kesswa?
Well, I believe that historically Detroit has had such a fluctuating journey in our infrastructure. We're known primarily for our exports in culture and in just industry in general. And I think that because of the economy and the way that things have kind of materialized and transformed over generations, it's hard for people outside of Detroit to access what is percolating here. And so because of that, it kind of creates a pressure cooker. Like, we're our audience and we are all so talented that we sometimes put a lot of pressure on each other to create to a certain caliber or standard. And those of us who do have the privilege to leave sometimes and go out in the world are able to witness and receive the impact that that kind of training helps develop in us. And so, yeah, I think I think I might have forgotten the question.
No, you answered it beautifully. Thank you so much, Kesswa. You answered it beautifully. And, there's just so many different aspects. And when we think about Detroit's creative community and getting out and branching out and I guess, relating to other folks throughout our arts culture in the world globally, I do want to get back to Juana really quickly, because Juana, I do want to ask you just about the hunger right now, the global hunger for more diverse artists. Are you seeing a hunger, especially now that you're working more globally with different institutions and curators, that there is a hunger to see more artists, especially in the U.S., from the U.S.?
Absolutely, yeah. Kind of piggybacking on what Kesswa was saying, I think the unique perspective that Detroiters have, people are really interested in. There's been sort of an influx of information about Detroit recently. Like, people are interested in the city for a number of reasons in ways that they hadn't been in the past. And the arts are a major part of that. And I think what's been interesting about our experience in Paris was, like Kesswa was saying, being able to bring the visual arts, but also music and also these other aspects of the arts that are happening here, I think has been really important. But the way that the Paris community and really the global community, because Art Basel brings a lot of people to Paris, reacted to what we did makes it very, very clear that people are interested in this and want to see more of it. And so it's not even just so much they're interested in what's happening in Detroit, that's a part of it, but I think they're just interested in more stories, in the same way that we go places and we want to see what's different there than what's, happening here. People are interested in what's happening in Detroit. People are interested in kind of just the idea of globalization and like sharing stories and what's similar about us, what's different about us, how can we be better? And so I think, in having individual conversations that I had in Paris, that became really clear to me in a way that it hadn't been before.
Oh, okay. So Juana, number one, just thinking about those conversations, storytelling, what will Detroit Salon do, or what one of the goals there of reshaping the narrative of the city of Detroit and letting folks know that, like, there is things popping and happening in the city, not just the things that you are familiar with?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because that's a big part of the work that I do. When I started curating the shows for Paris, that is exactly what I was thinking about. And I know that, people know about the arts in Detroit. This is not like a completely brand new idea, but it's more about expanding that narrative and also about thinking about that narrative in an authentic way. So having actual Detroiters create that story as opposed to having our story told by other people. And so I think that was the biggest part of it, making sure that while we're creating these narratives, while we're sharing this information, we're thinking about what has happened in the past. So historically, artists have always been making in the city. What did that look like? How did that impact what's happening now? What contemporary artists are creating things? And so the 3 exhibitions we focused on, we thought about, artists who are working now, and that's what we presented. But all of it is based on what has happened in the past, because we don't want people to think, if they haven't known about what's happened in Detroit in terms of the arts and culture, we don't want people to think this is new. We've been making art forever. And I think that story is really important to tell and to expand on.
We're talking about Detroit Salon, an initiative that connects local artists with global audiences. Our guests are interdisciplinary artist Kesswa and Detroit Salon artistic director and chief curator Juana Williams. Now, Juana, you've been working with the leaders in the international art world. What has it taught you about the things that needs to improve here in Detroit's art scene?
I think there needs to be more international conversation. Like Kesswa was saying earlier, in a way we're sort of insulated, and there's a protection that comes from that. There's a level of power that comes from the closeness of the connection or the community here. But I think there's also a lot of opportunity that comes from branching out. And that's not to say that people haven't branched out or haven't tried to, but I think in recognizing just the time we're in now, how people are connected in a lot of different ways through social media, through, Zoom calls, through whatever, like, we have so much access to each other now. And I think I'm actually seeing more of this, and I'm excited to see it, but I think it's really important for us to, have conversations with other people, to collaborate in different ways, whether that, is me co-curating with a curator from another place, or artists working together, or like swapping spaces or doing residencies. I think having the opportunity to just be in other environments, to have community with people who are not like familiar with how you live, I think that's really important. And I think it also really lends an important aspect to artists' careers and their practice.
And Juana, you're just talking about those partnerships, of course. For your experience so far, just working with other curators and just connecting with other curators globally, what can you say about curation in terms of being a Black woman, and what is it like being in that space right now?
I think it's an interesting experience. I'm grateful for the number of Black people and Black women who've come before me. I think it's really important for me to recognize that this door was open for me before I got here, and I'm very grateful to be able to walk through it. But we also still have challenges, and I think Black women have a unique perspective in terms of how we experience art, in terms of how we experience the world, in the same way that a lot of other people do too. And I think it's important for us to make sure we bring those experiences to the work that we do. And
the giants that you're talking about, people that walked so a lot of us could fly today. And Detroit has had a very rich and just really full arts community and scene for such a long time. There's collectives. There have been so many different collectives in the city that have been run by Black artists. But I do want to just talk about what it means to carry that mantle, what it means to continue that conversation, especially in the age group that you all are in. You're starting to transition to mentors, and you're starting to transition to a different level in your careers. So what is it like to take that mantle and just continue on and take it to the international stage?
Yeah, so it's difficult for me to think of that on a day-to-day basis because, I mean, I've lived as a Black woman my whole life, so it feels very normal to me. But I think when it really becomes obvious is when I speak to students. So I have opportunities to guest lecture at universities or just give talks and things like that, and to see like these like 19, 20-year-olds who are looking forward to being, visual artists as their career, or curators, or working in the museum world, and the questions that they ask, and to be in a position where I can answer those questions and I can say, well, I did it, so you can too, like, here's my contact, call me if you need help. I think being able to have those conversations is the most inspiring for sure.
Yeah, Kesswa, same thing for you. Just being in this space, you're working, you're consistently working as well. When people ask you questions about your career, how you got this or how'd you do that, what does that make you feel, number one, and what do you tell them?
It makes me feel sometimes surprised because I spend a lot of time doing a lot of things. And a lot of the work that I do is very social. And so I'm not always thinking about the work as separate from life.
Yeah.
And whenever I do get an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who's just curious about how I arrived where I am, it calls into focus all of the people, like Juana was saying, that really have paved the way, opened the door, given the cosign, said my name in a room that I wasn't in. And I think I always try to emphasize the importance of community and connection and collaboration.
Yes, and I just want to say, Kesswa, I saw you at the closing of Tiff Massey's 7 Mile in Livernois at the DIA. Amazing set.
Thank you so much.
Had a blast at that show. But before we close out, I do want to ask Juana just about, going forward. Detroit Salon will launch a public open call for artists interested in participating in future activations between 2026 and 2028. And this is a part of your mission as an organization, remaining committed to accessibility, transparency, and inclusion. So I do want to ask you, as a curator, how does an open call create space for more creatives to get involved?
An open call is really important because that's an opportunity for literally anyone to apply. As a curator, I spend a lot of time in studio visits and exhibitions and meeting artists, but I don't know everyone. Yeah. I don't know every artist that's making work in the city. And there are some amazing artists, I'm sure, that are out there who I unfortunately haven't seen their work or I haven't met them. And that gives an opportunity for those artists to make sure that their work is being seen, and make sure that they have these opportunities as well. And, the real point of having the open call is really to just bridge that gap, sort of. So, the Metro Detroit area is highly populated. We have a lot of arts and culture that's happening here, but the rest of the state does too. And they don't necessarily get the same promotion or the same, eyes on them, so to speak. So the open calls that we'll do includes the whole state, including the Upper Peninsula. Any artist who's working in the state can apply, and that gives them an opportunity to get their work in front of our team, but also the jurors that will select who will be people outside of our team. And obviously, if their work is selected, they get to travel with us. This year, we're going to Basel in Switzerland, and we're going to London. And so there are two opportunities, that artists from Michigan will be able to exhibit their work, and may not have been able to exhibit in those places before.
And where can folks find out more if they are interested in applying for the open call or just learning more about Detroit Salon?
Our website is detroitsalon.art. And so everything that we do is on there. The open calls will be on there when they open. We just closed an open call, actually, that we're partnering with the Foundation of the United States in Paris. And they'll have a month-long residency in February. We'll be announcing the artists that's selected next month. But we're trying to create, all the open calls that we do, but also partner with different organizations in the countries we go to just give so many opportunities to Detroit and Michigan-based artists as much as we can.
Kesswa is a vocalist, producer, filmmaker, and Wayne State and Cranbrook alum, and Juana Williams is artistic director and chief curator for Detroit Salon, also a Wayne State alum. Detroit Salon currently, it does not have an open public open call right now, but it will have one opening up pretty soon. Next month, so just be prepared for that. What's the website one more time?
DetroitSalon.art.
Thank you so much, both of you, Kesswa and Juana, for joining us on the Metro, talking more about Detroit Salon and Detroit's arts community.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, Inside Arts Literary Arts is celebrating 30 years of poetry for the next generation of writers. That's next on the Metro. You all stay right there.